Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager. And in this end of month podcast, I'm joined once again by the illustrious editorial team. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Tom Brown. I'm editor of Money Marketing.
Hi, Dan Cooper, news editor.
Hi, Lois Valley, chief reporter.
Hi, Mamadou Musatere, senior reporter.
Hi, Darius McQuaid, reporter.
Okay, amazing. Thank you guys once again for joining me for this end of month podcast. So I guess we can jump into February and everything that we covered there. Is there anything in particular that stood out for you, Tom? Shall we start with you?
Well, a couple of things. One sort of interesting sort of article about pensions and what the Labour Party's approach to pensions might possibly do. It's written by Simon Fitzpatrick, the head of public affairs at H. Advisors Cicero, which I thought was an interesting sort of speculative piece. There's a lot being talked about Labour's financial plans, what they may or might not be if they do, as expected, win the election. They've very much had a sort of don't scare the horses approach when it comes to their financial plans, particularly around tax. Just because they don't want to alienate potential support. But there is an interesting idea about around this publication of Financing Growth, Labour's plan for financial services that came out just recently about, you know, what a Labour-led Treasury might actually do. It addressed lots of different issues around international competitiveness and green finance, obviously, since we've had the row back about the Green New Deal, so-called Green New Deal, which it was originally pledging, I think it was £28 billion a year for, and it's rowed back against that problems. But there's a lot of speculation that it might do something radical on pensions. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on, and particularly with the budget coming out, what the Tories might do to try and win back potential support ahead of their election. But it's an interesting matter of speculation, and I certainly recommend the article. And from a personal point of view, I did a weekend essay on a sort of little sort of spat. Spat is what I called it. A lot of people put me up on this term spat, but exchange.
Spat is what it was. I think it was a spat.
Well, I'm going to say, between ex-Monty Python stars Eric Idle and John Cleese, and I posted it on Twitter, and I got a reply from Eric Idle himself.
Wow.
Saying yes.
It wasn't even just
he loved it, right?
He quote tweeted it. He quote retweeted it.
He quote retweeted it.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I love this piece. This is amazing. Thank you.
That's a lovely idea, Kim. Unfortunately, he didn't say that. He said, I refuse to read this piece. You English journalists are always trying to stir up trouble or worse to that effect. So I got a lot of Eric Idle fans accusing me of being a hack of the vilest dye and hue. So that was interesting, yeah.
And they were calling Money Marketing tabloid, which is quite funny because
I decided not to step in and get involved in these debates. But anyway, that was a 24-hour wonder. There we go.
Let them get on with it, especially those who didn't even bother to read it. So get riled up.
So that was me.
Yeah. Oh, the internet will internet. What about you, Darius? What stood out for you in February?
I think, and obviously it's not related to the upcoming budget, but I did a few articles regarding the abolishment of lifetime allowance coming up, and what it means for advisors and their clients. And AJ Bell in particular have been releasing a few things to try to help advisors with this transition. One was they've launched something called Tech Zone, which is a tech hub for advisors to deal with impending changes brought on from the end of the LTA, which should be coming in April. And also offering some free webinars to advisors as well to try to help them navigate life post LTA, and what's going to come into replace LTA effectively, and the transition from it and so forth. Because I remember it was quite a big deal when Jeremy Hunt announced he abolished it last year during his budget. And so it's a decent amount of fallout sort of expected from it, or there's be some big changes, and I think advisors are very aware of this, and from conversations I've had with people, like the LTA abolishments really sort of dominating their conversations, and so I think there's a lot of people sort of gearing up and getting ready for this change because they're aware that it's going to be has a real big impact on their job and their conversation with their clients.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's still speculation on how that's going to pan out, but it'll be something that we'll keep following. And Mamadou, what about you? Welcome back, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Kim, and it's good to be back. First time since when? October, I think.
You haven't been on a podcast in forever.
Exactly.
But it's nice to have you back.
Yeah, me too. Good to be here with all these lovely people, lovely team. Yes, I came back. I think first week February. Yes, I haven't done much.
You haven't done much. You've been writing so many stories, churning out that content.
Well, yeah, and February. I mean, I think one thing that kind of like started for me will be the FCA's recently published data on the consumer duty. I think that was something we wanted to see, data, since it came into force, last July, So I think the data coming in doesn't read well, for farms, because I think the FCA is saying, some farms are still struggling with price and value, in particular, to kind of like demonstrate or to show the consumers are having, fair value, because the whole idea of the consumer duty was to make sure that, consumers, have access to, to better pricing and kind of better value. So I thought that was something there that kind of stood out for me, this month, and then despite the challenge, there have also been, some progress, because it seems since the consumer duty came into force, advice firms, have kind of like structure their fees. So I think that's one positive.
Yeah, I think all big companies, small companies, they're all having to really take a look and be like, am I actually providing value for what I'm charging?
Exactly.
Which I think every company in the world should actually think about that as well. Right now, at least. And Lois, what about you? What stood out for you in February?
Well, it kind of vaguely relates to that, because I think the main thing that stood out for me was SJP published its financial results not very long ago, and it made a £9.9 million loss, and that's compared with, how much did it make last year? £407.2 million that it made in profit in 2022. So that's a big swing to loss. And part of the reason it said is because it's noticed a marked increase in complaints from clients relating to ongoing servicing. So its share price was hit on the morning, obviously, that the results came out, dropping from 621 pence to 438 pence. It's now gone back up to about 500 and something. So I don't think the share price will stay down for long, personally. But lowest levels on its share price in 11 years, according to Reuters. So got hit quite badly, and a loss is not a good thing. But as I say, part of the reason is this ongoing service issue. So it's had to set aside £426 million for potentially refunding clients, because it hasn't, according to its own assessment, it hasn't evidenced ongoing service well enough. And that kind of relates to something that the FCA released in the middle of the month. It wrote to 20 of the largest firms, asking them what they're doing on ongoing service. So it has concerns that clients are continuing to be charged after advice has been given for not doing very much. So basically, clients are still being charged even though they're not really getting advice. So it's this whole thing looking at ongoing service, I think, is really interesting, a really fascinating, don't forget, ongoing story.
Yeah. And I guess we'll see what how that pans out towards the end of the year, I guess, when they're going to scrap their fees? Or
I think it's 2025. Yeah, they're
2025.
Their exit fees. That's another thing that's sort of come out of the Consumer Duty. Obviously, deluge of cutting comments on the article about what SJP is doing wrong.
Right.
But then I also saw a LinkedIn post from Abraham Okusanya, of Timeline.
Yes.
Suggesting that this SJP bombshell announcement, he called it, is going to maybe lead to a lot of the larger firms and consolidators. He says that they're facing a serious shakeup and that the breakaway advisor trend will accelerate, which is, advisors breaking off and launching their own firms, which is one of my favorite topics, startup advice firms. I love talking to new business owners in advice. I find it very inspiring. So I hope that happens.
Yeah.
Personal perspective.
I think it's always good to have shakeups like that, and entrepreneurship and all of that.
But some of the comments under this LinkedIn post are quite telling. So obviously lots of people are saying that's great. We need more small firms. They tend to provide, better service to clients. But then one that I saw that I now can't find said it might actually result in less regulation of these firms, because if there's a lot of small advice firms, as we obviously the FCA wouldn't say it directly, but it is easier to regulate a few large firms than it is to regulate a lot of small firms. And somebody's questioned on this LinkedIn post whether the FCA is recruiting for the oversight that it's going to need to provide to all these potentially small advice firms coming out off the back of a lack of trust in larger firms.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then it actually might result in less regulation, which is probably not a good thing.
Well, when you said that, I did think of like all the stories that we have put out in the past about, small firm defrauded its clients, going to jail for years and years and having to pay back however much money they might have taken from their clients. So there are always those cases.
And quite a few of them have been, I think like it's 60% or something, are appointed representatives under networks. So that's something else the FCA is looking at, getting networks to sort of tighten up oversight over their appointed representatives to try and prevent. But you can obviously, if you're launching your own advice firm, you can take the appointed representative route, or you can go directly authorised, which is where you have complete oversight over compliance and regulation.
Right.
So, yeah, it's definitely
an evolving space.
I really want to say interesting.
That's why I gave you some
evolving space. We'll see what happens. Watch this space. As one should never say as a journalist.
I think Tom literally said that last month, in the last month's podcast, but yeah.
Because we all wanted to end our leaders with time will tell.
Yeah.
I was saying it ironically, obviously. That's my guess.
Okay. And Dan, what about you? What stood out for you in February?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things for me. Going back full loop to what Tom was saying at the start about pensions, and this new news that apparently the UK state pension age is going to have to be increased to 71 by 2050. So yeah, all going to be working longer apparently.
Who's going to make me?
Not me. Yeah, so the pensions, it's obviously an ongoing issue that has been spoken about a lot over the last few months, particularly. People are. There's all this talk about how do we get people saving more. Obviously difficult with a cost of living crisis that people just can't put more money away. A lot of people, and how is that going to affect them later in life? And yeah, I think the main thing was particularly with the pensions crisis was just how do we get people saving more? And
saving more money.
It's kind of £1 million question. And
well, I don't know. I think you get into like existential territory there. Because
there's a fine balance, because you have to be saving for your future, but also living in the present, because as I said off the podcast, the world could end next month or tomorrow.
Yeah, and not even just the world, but your own personal life could end. And
but I prefer thinking about the whole world rather than my own mortality.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a little bit more of a nihilist in that way, I guess. And that's why I'm always just like, if I'm saving, I feel like if I say any of this, all the audience will be like, that's stupid. But
well, you should definitely say it then.
Well, if I'm saving for me at 70 to do the things that I want to do right now, how will I even know that me at 70 will enjoy any of those things? And that's, I think that you also, apart from figuring out how to get people to save more, you also have to get through that mental barrier of people being like, but no, I want to go and travel the world now while I'm physically able to, rather than planning for a future where I don't know if I'll have that capability or if I'll still be around.
You know, Chris Budd, the financial advisor who's very into financial well-being, he says about this disconnect between you and your future self, not just you, Kim, anyone and their future self. And the fact that the same part of the brain lights up when you think about your future self as when you think about a stranger. So if you're putting money into a pension, you're basically being asked to give money to a stranger.
Yeah.
Which is quite...
And also I think about, for example, I also have a pension. It's probably not that much, but by the time I'm like in my 60s, when I could cash it out, it might be a substantial, but it's in Korea. And for me, that's money that I'll never probably attain, because the chances of me flying back there to actually go and claim it, because I couldn't claim it now, there's a part of me that also thinks like, oh, I'm cashing into this pension. What if it's just something that I'll never actually... Again, nihilist. So
that's exactly it's interesting what you're saying though, Lois and Kim, about that, because about your future self and, you know, thinking 30, 40, 50 years down the line, because there was that report recently, wasn't there? Darius wrote the story, and you're saying that if you save £460 a month from your, I think it's early to mid 20s, then you'll become a pensions millionaire, as they call it. So have a pension pot of £1 million or more once you reach retirement age. But like you said, you know, that's £460 a month is a lot of money at any age. And B, you know, when you are in your 20s, are you really thinking, oh, do you know what, I'm going to put £460 a month by when I'm 60? It's just...
Yeah, I can understand putting £460 away if you're like, I want to save for a house.
Short-term thing, yeah.
Yeah. But it's very difficult to balance those things, I think.
Yeah. And also, sorry, Dan, I was just saying with an article you're talking about, that if you did wait until your 30s to hit pension millionaire, it'd just be £775 a month, and if you waited to your 40s, it'd just be £1,400 a month to save into your pension to hit pension millionaire. So I think we've got 20s, 30s, 40s is a decent amount you're putting aside in your pension to hit that millionaire pension millionaire target.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you'd have to be someone who's living at home and not paying rent to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I think that the pension stuff was kind of, for me, that was one of the main things from February, and it kind of tied in with the other sort of main story that I was going to talk about, which was the report from the Lancat about advised platforms suffering their worst ever outflows in 2023, and being the worst year sort of on record for it, and it was sort of pensions nicers that kind of took a battering, as they called it. So it's going back to it. A lot of people obviously taking money out of pensions to help themselves and their family with the cost of living crisis. So you've got on one end you've got sort of people taking money out of their pensions to help with the cost of living. Then you've got the other end of the coin where we're being told that people aren't people aren't saving enough money for retirement. And it's kind of like this middle ground of like, where do we go from here? I know like the Nucleus has called for like a long-term savings commission, it's like a cross-party kind of effort to try and tackle the issue, but it's a difficult one to know where it's going to go from here, really. That was the other story that I thought was really interesting. Is it was the advised platform outflows, and it being the worst year, and it's something I wrote about a little bit in my leader for the latest mag, which is just about kind of where do platforms go from here? If 2023 was the worst year on record, will 2024 and 2025 be any better? If
what improvements are they making?
Yeah, exactly. It's difficult to know. It's difficult to know where it's going to go, because you've still got kind of at the moment high interest rates in cash. So yeah, who knows?
And since you brought up the March issue, Dan, I'll stick with you. Is there anything that's coming up in March that you wanted to highlight?
Yes, there's mainly the one I mentioned on advised outflows.
Okay,
that was the main story.
Cool. Well, we'll make sure to look out for that one. And Tom, what about you? What would you like to highlight for March?
Selfishly, my interview with Stephen Levine of Quilter fame, CEO of Quilter. We had a very interesting conversation. He's been a member of, he joined Quilter back in 1998 and has been through all its various kind of like evolutions since then. Mainly, he's taken a very key role in building up its platform and what we described as the epic platform migration journey, which took 3.5 years. It was the biggest platform migration in UK history. And he had lots of very, very fascinating things to say about that and where the platform is now and, how well it's doing. He had some very interesting speculations about the future of AI in the advice space as well, all about sort of like AI robot advisors and what have you. Very speculative, I do hasten to add. Quilter is not rolling out these robots anytime soon, but it's always interesting to talk to people, at that level about technology and where they think it will go. We had a nice chat about rugby and cricket as well, although that was a slightly marginal discussion at the end of the interview. But he was extremely friendly, and we got a really nice interview out of it. And that's one of the sort of lead features in the magazine. So I would commend that to everyone's attention.
Yeah, definitely check out the Meets when that does come out. And Lois, what about you? What do you want to highlight for March?
I wrote the cover feature for March. And I also wrote a 2-page leader, but that was about the FCA ongoing service thing, which I've already mentioned. But the cover feature was on the letters of authority process, which is something, if I ever mention letters of authority to an advisor, they roll their eyes. So I thought it was probably about time I did something in depth on that. Yeah. I won't go into too much detail because I'll go into detail next month. But it's basically about how some providers are still very much stuck in the past on quite a few processes, but particularly letters of authority. Some of them still asking for wet signatures when in other areas. I saw Elon Musk tweet a robot walking around an exhibition the other day. So yeah, there's plenty of technological advancement, which it means I'm sure they could accept electronic signatures. But anyway, I think it's quite a lot of legacy issues, which many of them need to sort out. They are fairly big companies, but that's not necessarily an excuse.
Yeah, I think within financial services, that's an issue, because when I talk to like the people on the mortgage side as well, that's an issue. And that's why they say that like the chain for purchasing a house is so long because of the process of like having to get a wet signature, which was alleviated a little bit during the pandemic because people couldn't physically do it. But it seems people have gone back, which is
I know, it's strange. And speaking of the pandemic, one of the things, not just in financial services, across most customer services businesses, is this thing about when you call them and they say we're experiencing unprecedented levels of call or unusually high call volumes at the moment, and it just, if that's the case every time, they're not unusual anymore, are they? So
no,
maybe you should hire more staff so you're not getting.
Yeah, that is so true. I've never thought about that.
But I know Martin Lewis has launched some sort of campaign across various like utilities and broadband and so on, and financial services, getting people to say when they've had that message, when they've called their customer services provider. I get it every time I call any of mine.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, bad.
No matter what day, what time, it's always the same. So
I called a certain bank one time at 9:30 p.m. and they said they were experiencing unprecedented levels of calls, and I was like, wow, who's calling you at 9:30 p.m.? If I said AM, then I meant PM. Except me. It was ridiculous.
It's a cover, and we're gonna unravel it.
It's not true.
Yeah, it's true. And Darius, what about you? What would you like to highlight for March?
It's not going to be in the magazine, but there's a piece going up regarding ESG, and it basically there's been quite a few bits of negative press and sort of stats regarding ESG investments and sort of advise appetite towards the ESG and so forth. And so I sort of spoke to a few people in the industry and just try to get a bit more of a thorough, detailed look. So just how true is it that ESG investments is dwindling out, or is actually more to it? And one argument was that 2023 was a bad year for a lot of funds, a lot of investments, and it's not really fair just to single out ESG because a lot of different asset classes felt the strain of it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think I've noticed as well, just in terms of people talking or wanting to talk about ESG, it has really petered out and hardly anyone mentions it. So it kind of feels like it's no longer important to some advisors, investors, whatever.
Yeah. I think the acronym doesn't help. It's really ugly.
Yeah. So what they need is a rebrand.
I do have a thing against acronyms, but ESG is one of the worst I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
So we need to sit down, have a rebrand for ESG, and then get the ball rolling again.
All right.
Yeah.
How about GSA or something like that?
No.
It'll be something better.
You don't think that would fly? Okay, fine. But that's that'll be coming out soon. That's what,
Okay.
For next edition, yeah.
Great. And Momadou, I know that you're still kind of getting acclimated or reacclimated, but is there anything you wanted to highlight for March?
I mean, for the March, there's no article for the March, but I think for March, I would say the budgets, so that's something, we're looking forward to the big day budgets, so
you say that and then hardly anything. You don't. They're just. There's potential that they might just play it safe because it is election year.
Exactly. This is their last chance, So who knows? Maybe they might throw up, something. We don't know.
But to Tom put it, they don't want to. Labour doesn't want to scare the horses. I'm sure Conservatives don't either. And horses are very easy to scare.
It's true.
It's possible that they might do something on non-dom status. Notice this. To use another animal metaphor, they might shoot one of Labour's foxes, as they say, because this would have been potentially a headline thing for the Labour Party to do, and a more natural thing for the Labour Party to do. If the Tories do it, then how will Labour react? Interesting.
So, as in, people who have non-dom status will be taxed now.
That's the speculation, whether the Tories would go that far, given I don't want to say anything too untoward.
I was going to say
who donates to their parties.
Someone's going to be having difficult conversations at home.
Exactly, with
your wife. So remember how you didn't have to pay taxes? Yeah. Anyway, that will be interesting, and I guess we'll cover that in our budget Spring Budget podcast when that comes out. But I think this is a great time to wrap everything up. So thank you again for joining me for this end of month podcast. And I love talking to you guys as always. And I look forward to talking to you guys for the budget podcast and our end of month podcast as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thanks, Kim. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.